What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Funnel Vision Show. I'm your host, Mikael, and of course, as always, Funnel Vision is brought to you by Funnelytics, where we help marketers become better marketers by looking at their visual data and understanding exactly what's working versus what's not. And we do this show because we want to help you level up your game as a marketer. And today is no different. Today we have a very special guest who's going to really walk us through what it takes to really have the right mindset to be a world-class marketer. Whether you're in an agency or you're in a $1 billion business, what does it take in order for you to get to that level and to level up your mindset? We have Patrick Ward with us today. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm looking forward to diving into this in this conversation. For those who don't know, let's start off with your not so humble bragging rights. What have you been able to do for your clients? What have you been able to do for yourself? In other words, why should people just listen into this show?
Yeah, so agencies I've lived and breathed, sold into a variety of industries, but if you could name a big name client, I've had it. Google, Sony, Allianz, the United States government, the United Nations, American Express, Citibank, like the list goes on. I have worked everything from the digital marketing agency that was the backbone of the Mythbusters Productions team as they were transforming into digital, all the way through to the multi-billion dollar conglomerates that I find myself at today with Media.Monks.
Wow. Okay. So you've got a breadth of experience and you've gone through the gauntlet. So let's take a step back a little bit. I'd love to understand your journey into the world of marketing. How did you get into this world? How did you start to work on these big accounts and basically walk me through the career path?
Yeah, so like many, I did do my major in marketing, but it wasn't there to begin with. I originally thought I was going to do economics. I tried that, flunked out of that. I tried finance, flunked out of that. Then I did marketing, and my first course, I got second out of about 500 people. So I figured I'd stumbled onto something that was successful. And what I liked about marketing is there's a lot in the discipline who will tell you that you need to master an industry. And that can be a way to have a very effective career. I don't doubt it. But for me, myself being a very curious person, I realized that it didn't really matter. It didn't really matter which industry you went into, because at the end of the day, the psychology that underpins the foundations of marketing, that's all the same. And that was what I was really obsessed by, thinking of why do people buy the way they buy? How do they buy? How do you make it easier for them to fall in love with the brand and the products and the solutions that you represent? And so that has been the thread that has taken me everywhere from the travel industry where I started, through to insurance, through to technology, through to finance, through to food and beverage, you name it, there's been an industry I've touched. But I think throughout all of that, it really comes down to two core philosophies for a marketer to think about. Are they a builder or are they a seller? There's no right answer here. If you're a builder, you're probably going to like more emerging companies, and this is where agencies can be really exciting spaces. If you're a seller, maybe you want a more established brand.
So what do you mean by a builder or a seller?
A builder is often where you are trying to figure out those early motions for a marketer. So for example, when you are building a new product, everyone obsesses about product market fit. But what people neglect is go-to-market fit. And go-to-market fit doesn't simply mean how do we sell as much of our product as possible, but it's how do we sell in the right way? How do we sell in the way that our buyers want to buy? Because it's not just enough to have the best possible product. It's also about understanding, why does a buyer want to purchase your solution? And more importantly, what are the unspoken reasons why they buy? This is something I think agencies get particularly well if they understand it, is that it's not just about the latest product, the latest technology, or the latest features. It's often understanding, where does your product or solution fit within the overall ecosystem of what that buyer is thinking about. Are they thinking about how do I get a promotion? Are they thinking about how do I level up to the C-suite? Are they thinking about how do I drive more revenue? These other areas are like so much more important than just getting into a battle against your competitors for who has the best feature set or who can drive the best marginal ROI. And I think that is one of those areas that not every marketer is necessarily ready for. When you think of, on the flip side, that more mature seller model, that's more when you're thinking about high level differentiation. These are when, if you're going into one of the biggest Fortune 500 brands, you're not even thinking about these builder stage questions because they're $1 million problems. You're thinking about $1 billion problems. You're thinking about how do I take what we've done in the United States and replicate that for Europe, right? How do I like massage complete messaging? And so both of those frameworks of what a marketer understands can be right in their own context, but it's very important as you develop your career as a marketer to understand like which sandbox do you play better in.
And with that said, which sandbox do you play better in?
I would personally say builder. So even with the largest companies that I've worked for, it has often been where they've hired me because they're trying to undergo this huge transformation. And that'll dive into what we'll talk about a little later, where a lot of marketers have become fixed in certain ways of thinking of this is the way we've done it, or this is the way that brands are built. And as anyone at the forefront, especially in some of these more emerging areas of marketing, they know that it's always changing, right? Because our consumers are changing in how they want to buy, in what type of things matter to them, in cultural differences, in nationality differences, all of these different areas that change how a buyer thinks about the suite of products and solutions. Because it's not just about thinking about you and your competitors, it's also thinking about you versus status quo. The thing I like to use here always as an example, given that I've spent so much time with technology, is so many software providers forget the fact that you're not competing against your other software competitor. You're competing against Excel or like Google Sheets. There are a lot of manual processes that are still done for some of the largest companies in the world in simple Google Sheets. And so when you think in those ways, then you start to really bring yourself into the mindset of your customer. And that ultimately is how anyone should be successful. Now, will the billion-dollar enterprises change their ways? It'll take time. It's like a slow-moving ship. Like it takes a while to move. And that's where agencies can be really nimble. If you're a marketer in an agency, you can move mountains far more quicker because there's just less of that bureaucratic red tape.
Yeah, I would definitely call myself a builder as well. I think just that is the most fun part, but I understand also the exciting part of the seller, and it is a very different mindset. It is a very different way to approach problems, a lot less direct feedback in that way. Like it's the one thing with the builder is you do it, it works, or it doesn't work, right? Versus much more of these brand big campaigns. So you spent a lot of your time and a lot of your career talking or thinking about marketing mindset and marketing mindset transformation. And clearly you've explained or shown us a little bit of that now, but you have a framework that you take people through when it comes to this. So first, explain to me, what is marketing mindset? Like what are you talking about when you're saying marketing mindset transformation? What does that mean exactly?
So this is my own term for a phenomenon that I've been grappling with for a while. And I was grappling at it from two angles. One angle was I was coming into organizations as that builder that we've talked about and seeing a lot of success with my approach. At the same time, I was looking around me and seeing a couple of common failure points in many organizations where they were missing the mark. And now let's quickly talk about why they were missing the mark. So on the one hand, you had an entire philosophy around marketing that was still very psychology based. It was still very much in terms of big scale brand campaigns. It was very much pushed towards B2C because B2C has traditionally in the marketing field been the most at the forefront, primarily because it sells to consumers. Like you say, when you sell to a consumer, you can pretty quickly see, do they buy the product or do they not? With B2B, it can be a little laggard. And so because of this, you had the whole traditional architecture of marketing very poorly measured. On the flip side, you saw in the rise of the 2000s and the 2010s this surge in growth hacking models, in measurement models, in data models. All marketers, we had to become experts in those fields. This was a good thing because we were suddenly being able to measure the actual impact of what we were doing, but we lost something. We lost some of that earlier part. We lost some of that psychology and nuance, and we forgot, hey, we're not just here to make a graph go up and to the right. We are here to try and influence buyer behavior. And so I was trying to come at it from both those angles. And ultimately, where I came to was the marketing transformation mindset. And I distilled all of the things that I was doing and what I was seeing that was working as a 5-step process. And this 5-step process can be applied primarily to what I call agencies and mid-market companies. If you're the ultimate billion-dollar enterprise, as we've talked about before, you have enough money to play with to do the large sweeping brand campaigns, and often you're competing at that level. But if you are a little more slim on your marketing resources, then this 5 steps is, I think, what you should be focused on, where you get the best of both worlds. You're still being accountable to measurement, but you're not losing sight of the fact that you're not selling to bots. You are still selling to humans at the end of the day.
Interesting. All right, let's hear it. How does it work?
All right. So first step, very simple. Company story needs to be articulated. Now, why is this critical? Consumers more than ever have more information. They have a greater ability to pick brands that they identify with based on values. They're more able to discern very quickly whether there's any controversy around your brand. And they're also able to see, are you actually in this for the mission of both your product and making your customers more successful, or are you there for a quick cash grab? Really important to have a very solid framework of why you're doing this beyond just making money, because today's consumer is not okay with that. The second two, so 2 and 3, is all about communications, because at the end of the day, getting the messaging framework right is super critical to influencing that buyer. So first one, external communications needs to be in the language of the consumer. Some quick tricks here that I've used over my career, getting those surveys of those really core customers and then picking out language from their surveys and using that, because people love to hear the words that they use because it's how we interpret the world. This comes back to a really core philosophical trait that the way we understand the world around us is the words that we use. This is why different cultures who have different languages interpret the world in different ways. So using those words from your consumer, it's going to make your messaging sound that much more real to them and that you understand them more. The third one, internal communications. This needs to drive the creation of employee advocates. This is very critical because employees are the front line of your marketing efforts. It's all well and good to say, marketing team, can you create campaigns? Can you put our brand out there? But even to this day, one only has to look at the success of box offices for cinema. Even now, it is still primarily driven by word of mouth. We have still not evolved that much as humans. We still trust a recommendation from a person more than anything in the world. And so if we can create employee advocates within our company, that is going to move the needle further. But that starts with having the internal communication to drive the creation of those. The fourth one is similarly, consumers trust people. So lead with humans. Yes, if you are the billion-dollar brand, if you are Coca-Cola, if you are Apple, if you're playing at that level, of course, your company brand has taken on a life of its own, and you can invest in that. But if you're at this agency level and you're competing against 100 other agencies that kind of look the same as you, that kind of do the same thing, you really want to lead with the people, because at this level, like, people will be the way that you are able to get a much wider reach. You only have to look at the state of LinkedIn, where more and more founders are building their brands first, and then the company they represent is secondary. And that really speaks to the fact that, like, people resonate with people's stories more than anything else. And the final one comes around technology. Obviously, with all of this aspects of marketing, you're trying to get the foundation right, and that's really what those first 4 steps are. But the last piece is you need to scale it. And the way to scale it is obviously technology. But you don't want to fall victim to what we've talked about previously, which is you're just trying to growth hack the numbers into success. And so my advice here on the 5th step is you want to experiment with new technology, but you only lean in to certain technology if you seek to master it. The key word here is master, because I see too many agencies try and hop on the latest hype train, try and get their marketing teams to do 1,000 different things. And if they do 1,000 different things, they do them all in a fairly mediocre fashion. Much better to focus on 5 to 10 things that you can do excellently. And through that focus, you actually get much more results. So it's a fairly simple framework, obviously, as you build out the function. But this is where it's really key. It's really key if you can have these 5 steps down for your agency, you can start to separate yourself from the pack.
Can you just repeat all 5 of them just so that everybody is clear and we can just make sure to summarize them?
Absolutely. So first one, articulate your company story. Second one, external comms in the language of the customer. Third one, internal comms to drive the creation of employee advocates. Fourth one, lead with humans in your communication, because consumers trust people. And the 5th one, experiment with new technology, but only lean in when you seek to master.
Okay. So I will just touch on all of them a little bit from my perspective, because I definitely agree with everything you've said. The company story is one of the most important parts from a standpoint of even just putting together the right offer and packaging your service. There's got to be a hook, and then there's got to be a story behind that hook. And why exactly are you doing what you're doing, I think is extremely important. Internal and external comms, also very much important. And I think a lot of people miss the internal comms. It's very easy to think about as marketing, positioning, and how do we go and communicate and using the customer voice. And we talk about this, it's marketing 101. But internal comms is actually something that is very overlooked, and because the employees and the team members are ultimately the number one advocates of the brand and the company. And if they're not using the same language or the right language, and one person's describing Funnelytics as an analytics tool, and another person's describing it as a mapping tool, and then all of a sudden, guess what? Even the employees don't even know, and the team members don't even know what the company stands for. Founder-led or people-led brand is also, as you mentioned, something that is growing significantly. And even with big brands, what's interesting is, you're right, Apple and Nike and all of this stuff, like they no longer need the founder to be in the front. But let's be honest, Tesla has Elon Musk, and love him or hate him, he's a big reason why they are successful. And on the flip side, could be a big reason why they start to go downhill as well. Nike has all of the athletes. There's always someone on the front, because as you mentioned, consumers don't trust brands, they trust people, and they resonate and see themselves in other people. That is extremely important. And then on the technology side, you're 100% right. How can we make sure that we seek to master our tech stack? Because as marketers, tech, AI, automation helps us and simplifies our lives, but there's, I don't know how many pieces of AI and marketing tech that come out every single day, and hopping between one or the other doesn't really help, right? You want to build the tech stack that you are going to use that is going to be best for your business and double down on it and stack it. I 100% agree with every single point that you've mentioned. So tell me what has brought this up. Like, why, how did you distill it down to these 5 things? And what does it actually mean, like from an application standpoint?
Yeah, I think it means 2 things. From the application standpoint, it's a very simple framework that if you are a marketer entering an agency, or even if you're a marketer already in an existing agency, whether you're leading the team or a part of the team, just battle testing your own company's methodology when it comes to marketing is a good way. This is like that good 5-step framework you can deploy right now, today. Like, as soon as this podcast is finished, you can use it to just see if you're on the right track. Primarily because you've got one problem, which is marketing still, even to this day, is often order takers, and they're very quickly being told what to do from every other department in a company. No department other than marketing gets told what to do more. No one tells finance how to run an income statement, and no one tells engineers how to build a product. But for some reason, people feel the need to tell marketers, primarily because they are also exposed to marketing in their everyday lives. So I don't blame people for why this phenomenon happens, but it is a real phenomenon. The other side of it is for the C-suite executives at an agency to think about, are you following these steps? And so the reason why I deliberately put tech as the last bullet point is because that's one of the sins I see committed, is that they go all in on new technology, and as a result, there's nothing actually core or fundamental to their business. I have seen my fair share of tech hype cycles. I went through the blockchain hype cycle. I went through the AR, VR hype cycle. I've seen AI now 3 separate times. As much as we all know in this current moment, we mustn't forget there's already been a moment in like mid 2010s for those of us who have been specifically in the tech industry when facial recognition and computer vision were starting to come big onto the scene. So as a result, because tech founders, agencies are often immersed in this world of fear of missing out, they can forget that you still need some core fundamentals to your business beyond technology. Like, technology is not your business model. It is the avenue by which you solve problems for your clients. The other final thing I would say is, by focusing on these 5, it actually starts to filter out a lot of the noise. And it gives you a framework in which to start analyzing every single decision your business makes from what is core to your business. Because agencies are so quick to pivot to a new customer profile, try and spread themselves too thin in the illusion that is going to be the thing that gets them success, where actually I'm advocating for narrowing that. And this gives marketers a tool set in which to push back and say, okay, is this aligned with our company story? Are our external comms related to hype, or are they actually related to what our customer feels? Because when you look at the most successful companies, it's often because they solved one specific problem for one specific customer in the best way possible and grew from there. One of the biggest sins that agencies are committing is they're looking at the Apple, the Nike, the Coca-Cola, and say, they have so many business models. Why can't I? Yeah, because they earned the right to do that because they did one thing excellently in the first place. But unless you do that one thing excellently in the first place, you're not going to get to that level in order to diversify at that point.
Yeah, no, this is very fascinating, Patrick. This has been a very insightful conversation and a very practical, tangible advice. Where can people learn more about you?
Best place is LinkedIn. I spend all my time on that. So that's linkedin.com/in/Patrick James Ward, all one word.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Patrick. We appreciate your insights and thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.